So namaste, welcome to Satsang. And today, in response to things that have been coming up, questions that I've been asked this week, I thought it would be prudent to take a look at the core and the root of our suffering as human beings. Where does it come from? What perpetuates it, and what can we do, and what we can do also to move beyond it. What is it that really causes us to suffer? What is it that is bringing about emotional pain, trauma, things like that? And perhaps importantly as well, what is it that is causing so many of us on this planet to act in ways that are less than loving and compassionate? And what happens when we come to the end of our own suffering? What happens to other beings around us? Is it just simply that I'm here in satsang to transcend my own suffering and everyone else is kind of on their own with that? Or is there some kind of effect that happens that's when one person, one human body and mind transcends any ideas of illusion, limitation, separation? What happens to those around them? So at the core, we're here in satsang because we're not happy with how things currently are. At least that was where I started from. I would like to say that I was seeking enlightenment and peace and bliss and joy. But really I was just desperate to avoid this black pit of despair that was my life at the time. And this inner suffering, this pain that seemed to follow me everywhere and be constantly with me throughout everything. No matter what I tried in the outer world, rearranging my outer world and even rearranging my inner world, it just didn't seem to make any permanent difference. I could experience moments where the suffering was less intense, and certainly moments where it was extremely agonizing. And the only thing that permanently worked was to get to the reason why I was suffering, the root of it all. And I found out that the reason I was suffering was because I had this wrong idea about what I actually am. My whole life, as we all do, had been based around this character who I thought I was, that was separate to everyone else and everything else. And that character had been so believed in and invested in by me that all of its goals and dreams were given the utmost importance. So much energy and time and focus went on to this, adding to this dream, this illusion, this character that I thought I was, that it left me very little time to question anything else, actually, until trying it this way became so painful. And these temporary moments of cessation of suffering, they just completely stopped. There was just this increase of, and if you're in the middle of this period right now, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But there isn't any relief anymore. It just becomes more and more intense. And this is because this idea, this character has been outgrown by us. And that's why we're in satsang. That's the reason for this kind of gathering, this kind of spiritual gathering. So the root of all of my suffering was this misidentification, as thinking myself to be this someone, this character, this well believed in mythical thing that yet somehow had been given this reality, invested with a sense of reality, so much so that not myself or anyone questioned it. Everyone is walking around believing themselves to be this character. And this is the deep root of suffering, the cause of it. So can we unearth that in an easy and effortless way? Can we? Does it have to be hard? Or painful to come out of this illusion of this dream of being this character? Or is that idea, as I experienced it, it was very difficult to wake up out of that? Could that also be part of this dream character's stories, this story that it's hard to wake up, to come back to reality, to free yourself from illusion, to live in constant peace, effortless, stable, constant peace? All of us have experienced to some degree that it's difficult to come out of illusion, stay out of it. And could that be simply the last remaining part of this character who I thought myself to be, their last few stories? The greatest story of all that this character had going for itself was that it needed to reach enlightenment. It needed to wake up. It needed this separate being, this person called Helen, had to find some kind of way to work towards awakening. And that only then would I be happy and free of suffering. And of course, the truth wasn't like that. The truth was very, very different. And to me, that's the bit that we can find hard. The bit that we can find on our unfolding of awakening here in Satsang, we can find challenging, find difficult to let go of our old ideas. And the more investment we have in our old ideas, what we think is true, the more we'll hold on to those ideas. The more important those ideas that this character has, that we think we're playing, the more loyalty there is, the more long and drawn out that process is going to be of coming out of illusion. So the process itself is simple, actually wanting to see what you really are, and then seeing that these old ideas no longer apply. But in reality, the unfolding of that, there can be this loyalty to these old ideas because they seem important. And the most important ideas that we don't want to let go of is that seeking awakening or enlightenment or self-realization, whatever we want to call it, as this separate being is the way out of suffering. That has seemed like the holy grail of ideas, that this is the one that we should not let go of at any cost. And because of that, our suffering continues. This dream character that we think ourselves to be cannot ever reach enlightenment because it is fictional character. It doesn't really exist. What we are is something very different than a separate being, a person. Our personness is included in the bigger picture of what we are. We don't lose any of that. We only lose our ability to believe that that character in front of us is all we are. You know, the one that's insecure and feeling unworthy and feeling despair, and the one that's desperately trying to get to awakening, or whatever version in your mind is the story. That's also included in the bigger picture. But when you can't believe anymore that that's all you are, this thing, this always in motion trying to get somewhere, then suffering will stop. What if enlightenment isn't something other than you? What if it's already here and it's the space in which this kind of seekingness and desperate suffering is occurring? And really what's actually unfolding is that this enlightenment itself is beginning to lose interest in sustaining and perpetuating this dream character, the stories that go into that. And the enlightenment itself is coming to recognize itself as what it already is, rather than this dream character having to kind of somehow merge back into the wholeness of enlightenment, which, by the way, is really impossible. Although I'm sure, like you, you've tried really hard to make that happen. So a willingness, first of all, to let go of these most treasured ideas that you have to reach something, change into something, become something, merge into something bigger than yourself. That there even is two versions of you. Here's the greatest story of all that keeps this dream character going and going and going. Here's the biggest one of all, that there is the real you, and then this limited, separate version of you that has to somehow disappear. I believe that one too, of course. And that was agonizing, because this dream character tried everything it could to try to get rid of itself, so that only the real self remained. And that was also impossible, because it doesn't really exist. And the only thing that kind of really shook the foundations enough of this illusion to unearth it, to pull the foundations out from underneath it, so it began to really collapse, and very quickly then, was to actually look and try to find this character, this separate being, this person. And to look and to not find it had some shocking revelations. It began to seep in that everything that this dream character was trying to do, try to be more worthy, trying to be more loved, trying to respect myself more, trying to be more compassionate, trying to allow in abundance, trying to not believe in illusion. It had a whole list, this character, of things it was failing desperately at and had to try even harder at. What's your dream character's list? What's the biggest thing on that list? Probably most likely here, because you're in satsang here, that dream character is desperate to break out of illusion or something like that, isn't it? And a lot of energy goes there, a lot of attention goes there. Big investment into this final push towards awakening at the expense of what's already here now, at the cost of peace right now. So what can we do then to kind of uproot this illusion, this idea? Can we just do something right now that will pull the rug out from underneath it? The ground where this illusion is firmly planted, what can we do about that? And the only thing that's going to change things permanently is to have a direct experience, in your own experience right now, so that you know in your heart that you're not just listening to something I said, or listening to someone else's experience, or reading in a scripture, or teaching, watching somebody on YouTube or something like that. But a direct experience where you can say, even if it only lasted for a nanosecond, you can say with absolute clarity that you are not a separate being. Whatever happens after that, of course we're going to go back into illusion, and we'll look at that afterwards. But once you can experientially prove yourself right now that you're not what this dream character seems to be, and that you can't even find it, actually, surely that's got to really shake the foundations of all this efforting and struggle and striving, which really is suffering. Efforting, striving, and struggling towards some future goal is synonymous with suffering. Not being able to rest in what's here right now. And that you can't really do both for very long at all. You can't really push towards some future moment where this character reaches awakening and rest in this moment as it is right now. For a short while, there'll be both of those going on, and you have to pick one. Which one is most important for you? And that's why we need to have an experiential seeing. So let's do that now. If you want to join in, if you want to directly experience, and then from that point, everything will shift inside. You'll have to do this again and again, because our tendency is to go back to the story out of force of habit. back to the character and what it wants. Just to see, though, even once, that it's not actually there will begin to change everything, as it did for me. So here, just with me now, if you want to participate, let's just see if you can find yourself, this person, this character, the one that wants enlightenment. Where is it? Can you find it? When I search this is confusing for me at first, but when I actually searched my beingness, myself, tried to find this separate being that I had been so convinced I was, I couldn't find it. So just looking with me now, can you find a someone? Can you say where they are and where they aren't? And when you're looking in your experience, just not trying hard with me, just looking here, you can find your body. Of course, your body's here. Of course it is. And your senses are perceiving, your eyes are looking at the image, and your ears are hearing these words, and you can feel, your body can feel what chair you're sitting in, and there may be thoughts going on. I don't understand what Helen's talking about. I don't know if I'm doing this right. This isn't going to work for me. Whatever your mind is saying. And there might be some sensations going on in the body and some emotions maybe. All of that is here. We're not going to do anything with that. That's here. That's the body and the mind doing their thing. But where are you? Can you find, searching the body and mind, can you find, searching your beingness, where actually are you? For me, I had this really strong sense that I was just kind of as big as my body, as wide as my body, is same size. And I was kind of living only inside my body, that my body was my house and I was living inside it. And that when the body was gone, I was in trouble. When I actually looked like this, I knew I was here because I was doing the searching. But I couldn't actually find where this Helen character stopped and started. Something was here that I've called me or I. But what is it? Where is this separate being? Where is this person? Can you actually find this character that's running the show? The one with the desperate wants and needs. Wants to be loved, wants to feel valued, he wants to be respected, wants to find peace, wants to wake up to the truth. It wants to stop suffering. It wants out of the fear and the unworthiness. All this. Where actually is it? Seems to be here. We're not negating that either. Really, really seems that there's someone here. But we're not going to take that as enough evidence. Right now, let's go beyond seems to and actually see if we can find it. Just looking with me again. The body, thoughts, sense perception. Who do they belong to? When I say my thoughts, who am I referring to? Who is this me? Is it really this small, limited being that I've imagined myself to be? What do you find? Can you find any such entity? It sure seems to be here, right? This person. But if it's here, we should be able to find it. It's enough to look like this and be willing to change our mind about this. When I looked, I can't actually find this person. And it was really, really shocking. And I looked again and again and again. Every time I looked, couldn't find Helen as a separate being. Couldn't find it. And searching your experience right now, you can find a body, You probably find a mind with thoughts, emotions, sense perception. But where is the person they belong to? Can you actually pin it down? It's here, or it's there, or she's over there, or she's only this big, or this big, or this big. Just to look directly now and experiencing with me that you cannot find this central character. It's not there in the way that we thought it would be when we actually look. And with that begins to be the undoing of these stories. Because if you can't find this central character now here with me, even though it seems to be there, still, even for me now, it still seems like there's a character here making all these decisions and choosing what to say right now and all of that. It still seems like. But going beyond that seems to be, it's not actually there, this separate being. And if fear comes up with this, it's quite normal, but just to say one step further, if it's not there now, have you suddenly stopped existing? No, you're still here. You are here in some way, but not in the way that you've thought. Not this dream character that's running around doing its thing, desperately trying to get to some peace in a future moment. Has it ever been here then? Is this dream character popping in and out of existence? Is it suddenly pop back up again when we stop looking? When we go and have a cup of tea later after satsang, will it suddenly reinvent itself? Or is it more that a belief is given to this that seems to be here? Could it be that with the body here and thoughts and emotions and sense perception going on, that all of that together gives the sense, the illusion of someone here, a person, but that it's never actually been like that? And then looking at what we do find then, what do we find? If we can't find this person, what do we actually exist as? Again, you do exist, you're here, you're listening to these words, you're using your ears, your body's ears to hear these words. Your eyes are looking at whatever device you're watching this on. And those eyes are reporting back to something that you call I, but it's not at all the small thing that we thought. Let's look one more time, prove experientially. So beyond reading it in a book, beyond believing, beyond listening to some teacher telling you, actually experiencing that you cannot find this small, limited, separate being that's suffering. You cannot find it when you put it under the microscope and search, scan what you are. You find all the things that seem to belong to it, the body, the mind, my body, my thoughts, my senses. What is this me, really? When I looked at this, first of all, I could find only something that I couldn't really describe. I could say it's not a separate being. I could say that with clarity. It didn't really seem to be important at all because it wasn't actually an object to someone. It wasn't given any relevance at all. It seems crazy that after all these years of seeking enlightenment, then when I actually found the emptiness, the consciousness, the spacious field of awareness, that I just said, well, that's not it. That's dull and boring and unimportant. I didn't even know it was consciousness. It was just this blank, empty space, it seemed. And it certainly wasn't peaceful or quiet or any of that stuff at first. It was just Okay, overlooked. So there's just the space in which this body and mind and this searching is going on. This conversation is happening inside this emptiness. And that was the most important thing I've ever discovered, and I went right past it. And in fact, I even went back to investing in this dream character, gave it crossed off all the things on its to-do list and put at the top of this to-do list, try to get back to this emptiness. When I realized that I'd just gone right past the most important thing, that this is the thing, or the not a thing, that all these great sages were describing, I realized I mustn't have looked close enough and went back, and the separate being redoubled its efforts, this person, to try to find this again. But I can only get to it, access it, by looking and not finding a someone appearing in it. And then there it was, this empty space of awareness. It was conscious of the fact that there is no separate being here. It's not a thing. It's not an object. It doesn't have any thing you can grasp a hold of with your mind, and this is why mind doesn't like it. Your mind can't say anything about this except what it's not. It's not a someone. It's not trying to get anywhere. It's not trying to get away from anything. It doesn't want or need anything. It doesn't have any shape or form or any defining quality at all. It's just there. So what if the root of our suffering has been only that our identification has been only with this dream character, and that the next step in our evolution, our awakening, is to see I am more than that, because that isn't really an entity on its own. It's seems to be happening inside this greater something, nothing, emptiness, consciousness. And then if I can't find someone in the consciousness, then there really is nothing to merge back into. There's no two into one. There isn't any great surrender of this separate being and leaving only consciousness. There's nothing to give up. There's nothing to change. There's nothing to let go of, except this one idea that this guy here, this Helen version, is all I am. What if there's only one thing in the universe, one substance that's also called you, and that this you is so amazing that it can appear as this emptiness, this not a thing yetness that hasn't taken any quality or characteristic, doesn't have anything you can compare it to. And it also can appear as characteristics and form and shape and boundaries and thoughts and emotions and planets and grass and stars and everything else. What if there is only one substance here? Because when you notice this consciousness, this not a thing yetness, let's just check in again. Try to find that separate being. Absent without leave, isn't it? And then finding the greater space of our being in which that search is happening. Included in this great space of consciousness is the body, is the thoughts, is the emotions, senses, the world, all these other bodies, everything. Could it be that we've been so wrong about ourselves, thinking that we are just this one form, just this one form, and that when it's gone, we're gone? No wonder we're terrified, only to come to see that actually what I really am is something much greater than that, including that, but also including everything else. That's the oneness that I can't really say whether I'm intangible or tangible, because I'm both. I can show up as both. Can't really say if I'm form or formless. I can find my formless emptiness, and I can also find my form. I can't really say if I want anything or I don't want anything. In my emptiness, my consciousness, I don't want anything. And then in this form, I seem to want lots of things. I can't even really say if I'm living or dying or being born, because again, I'm both. This consciousness is not a thing yetness, had no beginning, has no duration, and will have no end. Yet this form here at the same time had a certain beginning and definitely will have a certain end. And everything in between will be what we call lifetime. Can you expand what you know yourself as? Maybe that's the root of all suffering, is trying to define ourselves in one particular way. What if you are the only thing in existence and so powerful that you can show up as not a thing at all, the source and infinite potential for all things? And also you can show up as all things. So just, if that's gone too far for you, don't worry, we're just planting some seeds. Let's just come back and check in again. Where are you? What are you when you look? Do you have to pick unlimited and limited? Do you have to juggle those categories and try to decide which you are? Or can you just step back into all of the above? Check every option on the list. How does that feel when you kind of rest without having to to define yourself? When you don't need to say even intangible or tangible, time-bound or timeless. What's the biggest, most open definition of yourself you can have? And how do you feel when you don't need to pick, when you don't need to? It's really only our thought process that's trying to decide whether we're form or formless, limited or unlimited. The consciousness, it's having at it both ways, isn't it? I'm showing up as this emptiness, this vast universe, and everything that's in it too, everything that could ever be and ever was, since forever, going on forever. So wherever you kind of resonated in that little journey that we've just done of self-discovery, just putting your attention back there and just keep bringing it back. Perhaps the only thing that's ever causing us pain is this misidentification. First, I'm sure I'm this form, and then I'm sure I'm formless, and that forms aren't real. And then I might decide that actually I'm both. And then eventually I might have this kind of epiphany that both even suggests two. And I can't really put any label on myself. And that is the fastest way out of all suffering permanently. This little thing of misidentification, which has a huge result of all of this suffering. Why? Because you are that infinite space of consciousness, and any idea that you give reality to, you give reality to this idea that you're a separate person, then this separate person seems extraordinarily real, and so do its problems, and so does its spiritual seeking, and all of that, karmic patterns, everything. What do you think happens to a particular body and mind when the consciousness has recognized itself And this body and mind begin to vibrate at a very different level. What do you think happens to all those body mind vehicles around that particular one? Do you think they could remain the same? Like walking around in the cold and then suddenly sitting next to a sun. We've been out in the icy cold and suddenly you find that right in your vicinity there's this blazing inferno of energy that is the self. How could that not affect everything and everyone around you? So stepping away from the struggle and towards discovery, experiential understanding, because only that is going to slow down this trying to get somewhere other than where I am right now, where I think I am right now at least. If you're ready, then the idea, the realization, the understanding that all of our stories are completely untrue is just the best thing you're ever going to hear. If you're not quite ready, it's the worst thing that your mind could hear, because there's such investment in these stories. Most of us in practice, it's a little bit of both. I was like, oh, I can get rid of those stories, but I want to keep these ones here. These ones about how well I'm doing on the path to enlightenment and all of that. So I'll keep that one, thanks. So, okay. What time are we on? So I have 2 questions I want to that have been sent in that I want to read out. In the meantime, if anybody wants to ask for help with what we've just done, or if you have a question or a challenge of your own that you're dealing with awakening, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom here and I'll come to you. So this one says, Dear Helen, I listened to your latest satsang. I am so scared. I had the highest love relationship in my life. Now it seems I have lost his love, huge suffering. And to get out of suffering, the spiritual way is to observe, to see, to not feel, not to be involved or attached. But it sounds so cold, having no attachment, having no feelings. I'm scared to never feel that love again. What is love if not what I had with him? Feelings, laughter, caring, and our kids. So I want to start by saying it seems to be that that awakening is asking you to give that up, doesn't it? That sense of that deep, rich connection and love and deep passion and commitment that 2 human beings can have with each other. It seems to be that awakening is asking you to release that. What if that isn't true? What if what you're really being asked to do is to see if you can expand your idea of what that love actually was? Because as amazing as that was that you've experienced with this person, it's like 0.001% of the love that you can actually feel with a human being, another human being, when there is no idea of separation between the 2 of you. Then this love, as amazing as it was, there is so much more there in our hearts. Our capacity to love beyond separation, love beyond duality is just infinitely, I can't even find any words that would adequately do it justice. There isn't. So maybe instead of the either or, can you begin to be both? Can you feel whatever you're feeling in your body and your mind? And also notice the space of consciousness that we just accessed that isn't attached. So something's very attached. I really want to be with this person. I want to feel what I felt with this person. There's also something that's not attached. Because you can't just stop feeling, can you? You can't turn that off, and you wouldn't want to, because it feels alive, it feels real, it feels passionate. All that's going on here is you're going to begin to identify yourself as the greater space of consciousness in which these two bodies are having this seeming relationship. One being manifesting in two bodies to experience the sense of duality in time and space in order to allow a love to express itself and deepen. So it's not cold, it's not a sacrifice, this. You can ask this question: is there an even greater way to experience what I just had? Is there an even deeper level, more intimate, more alive, more real than what I just experienced, building on what I had, that love? And for most of us, it has to take this relationship breaking apart for us to even question if there is two. It certainly did for me, to have to question, because I was so in love with this idea of two-ness, more so than even the body that I said I was in love with. But only when this kind of thing split apart, and then that pain seemed to be so great, so terrible, so much suffering, as you said, that I began to realize and question, why can't I feel that same way when there's only one body here? Do I have to rely upon this other person, this other body, to feel that way? And we're not excluding that. We're not saying that you can't enjoy that. Of course you can. But I must be able to feel that same way right now, here, myself. And then this other body and this intimacy, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of the above, this intimacy is just going to add to that and enhance it and agree with it. And that's about the best place you can hang out as a human being. Not identified as a human being, knowing there's no real relationship ever, there's only the one substance, the one being. But enjoying this play of seeming relationship, duality, and all of that. So just beginning to understand, if you can, that what you think you have to do here isn't right. You think you're being asked to give that up. What's actually trying to happen is it's trying to open and blossom into something even bigger. What you had minus the ideas of separation is just like massive. Whether that's with this person or not, that remains to be seen, but you will feel the same as you did and 10,000 times more. But only allowing it from yourself first. Not giving anything up, adding into, I've experienced love this way. Is there an even greater way to experience it? Just that question for me is transformational. If it really is love, it shouldn't come with the same unconditional love on love beyond separation. It shouldn't come with the suffering. This love that you had, as amazing as it was, the moment that that person goes away from you, it seems to have gone. Real love can't be that fragile, can it? It must be something deeper, something more profound. It also includes this that you've experienced. So I hope that helps. And obviously it'd be beneficial for the kids to come to that. Okay, so last question, and I'll take the hand that's up. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I've been in bed for the last few days with a flu, so it's been great to use the time to really hone the practice of expanding awareness into the contextual field. So contextual field is just another word that we're using for awareness, consciousness, emptiness, self, all of that. While doing the practice, it becomes clear that without attention, thoughts or apparent issues instantaneously dissolve. So without attention to them, thoughts and issues instantaneously dissolve. While doing the practice, there's an awareness of strong pulling, contracted sensations in the body. So I again expanded attention out into the field, and it really feels like a battle for attention. Are these pulling sensations the separate I fighting to hold on to attention, fighting for its life? I feel like it is, as without attention fixed on any object, I separately don't exist. Thank you again so much. Lots of love. What you said there is deeper. Without attention fixed on any object out there, in here, so thoughts, emotions and things out here, I don't exist as a separate being. It's only when I put my attention on an object that I become an object to someone. When I don't do that, there's just this field and everything that's kind of showing up in it. So it feels like this battle. Am I this field in which there's just me? Or am I this separate being that's perceiving objects and all of that? Some of those objects are these kind of contracted feelings in the body. And there's this tug of war going on in the attention. Do I do this, notice the field? Do I do this and notice what's going on in the body? And for me, it was just backwards and forwards over and over again. And this monumental battle occurred where I was just trying to keep my attention open all of the time, as much as possible, exhausted, didn't work. Until I realized that when I put my attention on the field, everything, the body and its aches and pains and everything still exist inside it. There's just no separate being there who has these issues, as you were saying. So I just relaxed into, as often as I could, noticing and being the field. And perhaps clearest of all, when my attention went back to objects, it was just that my attention went back. I didn't. So I'm the field. And in the field, there's this body with a brain, with the capacity to pay attention to things. Also, capacity to pay attention to the source of all things, my own self. And is it really anything to do with me, actually, where my attention is in any particular moment? What's that like? Because if I don't pick that up as a job that I have to manage and police, then there's just the field, and then there's just the objects appearing in the field, one of which is my body, my thoughts, all of that. And I don't have to make anything happen with that. If I am this field, awareness, contextual field, you've called it both of those, does that have to choose? Is that really involved in this tug of war, this battle for attention? Or is that something just happening inside the field? Because my brain said, that's just stunningly lazy, Hamilton. You know, you're never going to achieve anything if you don't even win this battle, spiritually achieve anything. But actually, it's the greatest of freedom to just step out of that. When attention's on the body and the mind and the issues, my body feels tight, contracted, and tense, and some negative emotion will be there, some negative experience. When attention's on the field, the awareness, the body feels light, relaxed, and free. Things tend to go my way. Do I have to get in the middle of that? And what happens when I don't? Naturally, attention just rests in the contextual field anyway. So there is a war going on. There is, how did you put it? Feels like a battle for attention. There is a battle going on, but is it yours? Is the field, the awareness? And it took me a long time to get this. When I did, it was just so blissful. Is the awareness even really bothered about this? Actually, what could it do about it, if anything? It doesn't have any hands. It doesn't have any either orness, either duality to kind of choose which one. That's all happening in the mind. On this idea that there are two things, form and formless, the field and what's appearing in it, that they're two different things. Therefore, I have to choose which to put my attention on. So have a go with that and see where you get to with it. It's exciting. Okay, so with two hands up, we'll go to Pilar. Hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes. Hello. Thank you very much for all your teachings and satsang. Just with what you just have said and before, I have the feeling that so I will sit with to listen to satsang and meditation but somehow I'm like avoiding to sit by myself and just be the self. And there is also this idea that you just said, that is there a need to sit by myself, like in silence, like be familiarizing with awareness and so on, or just flow with life? I don't know if this is an avoidance to really not sit.
Let's ask this question. Let's say that I do sit by myself. What happens if what does my mind say will happen if I do that? If I was to suddenly sit on my own, I do it in satsang, great, and then I come and sit on my own afterwards and see that I don't exist as a separate being and all of that. What is the thing that my mind said is bad about that? So there'll be some little story. Oh yeah, but if you do that, this is going to happen. Do you get a sense?
Yeah, I think there is some fear that it's boring, that I will not reach anywhere, something like this.
Yeah. I'm nodding because I remember that. You won't be able to be a good parent if you do this. You'll be utterly bored because the consciousness just seemed totally dull when I first noticed it, like I was saying. And so you can just sort of gently sit with this. Okay, is it really going to be dull just sitting on my own? Is it dull when I do this in satsang, or does it feel quite relaxing and peaceful? Or does it just feel, is it really going to be like my mind says? Am I going to lose anything in this by actually doing it? Even before you try to do it, you can just like, that might not be true. Maybe the opposite's true. Maybe sitting on my own, just hanging out in the consciousness is perhaps the most fun I can have as a human being. But just gently challenging it. Can you see? Just bringing attention to what the mind says is going to go wrong. And I don't necessarily need to let that stop me anymore.
Yeah, so somehow this is what I say to myself as well. And yeah, but there is more a tendency like to say, okay, let's go for a walk and just experience the awareness of everything without really being someone walking. But also, yeah, in this way, if I go through my day in this way, that is also like forgetting or the awareness. Yeah, like you are not always awareness, but the tendency goes to the person.
So isn't that, is the awareness any different at all, whether you're sitting, your body's sitting in a deep self-inquiry by yourself, whether your body is in satsang asking this question like it currently is, whether you're out walking the dog, whether you're at work? Is the awareness any different at all in those different situations where the body may find itself doing very different things?
Yeah. Not really for awareness, but really, yeah, but attention is maybe in the person or in the idea of the person instead of unless I am really conscious of being awareness, let's say. I don't know.
So there seems to be, like that previous question I read out, this sense that you have to somehow engage the attention in more. The awakening might be when my attention is always focused on the real self. But
yeah.
Could it be even easier than that you could come to see, I am watching even what my attention is doing? So if I said to you now, where's your attention? You could say, well, it's really caught up in a pain that's going on in my body, or it's caught up listening to a dog bark outside, or it's deeply perceiving the emptiness of my being. You could tell me all of those things. And for the last 10 minutes, my attention's just been lost in thoughts, just completely gone. And now it seems to have come back, and now it's asking this question. It wants to open up. You can see all of that going on, and you are watching. Here's you, and here's attention in front of you, and it's doing this, looking at the objects in the world. It'll turn around and look at the thoughts, but here you are already behind it, watching it. You can tell me whatever your attention is doing. Can you notice that?
Yeah. Yes, I am that awareness in which
Can
attention is moving.
Can that awareness even change where the attention is, what it's focused on?
Not really. It doesn't really matters. Yeah, for awareness.
So just for today, if you can, try to hang out in this. It doesn't matter where my attention goes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I know it seems very counterproductive to what we said today, but just try it anyway and see what happens. You'd be quite amazed. I'm just going to let my attention go wherever it wants to. If it's lost in thoughts all day, I'll give it permission to do that. And when you do that, something quite amazing happens. Because you're giving yourself a job to do here that you can't do as the awareness. And that's why mind's trying to get you hooked into this. You really should do this more on your own, but you're not doing it, because it knows once you see through that, then there's really nothing else for you to do. Where my attention is where my attention is. And somehow, at some point, I picked up this crazy idea that I have to kind of manage that process. And I'm starting to realize that might not be true. The awareness is the awareness. I am that awareness. There isn't a separate being. Every time I look, I can't find one. And there's nobody that needs to kind of always keep attention on the awareness. Sometimes it'll be on thoughts. Sometimes it'll be on the awareness. If I just let that be, if I'm lost in some thoughts, I'll totally not say that shouldn't be so. I'll go with whatever. If I experience some bliss, I'll be with that completely. If I feel some fear, I'll be with that completely. And there's a deep peace then that comes from just being the awareness all the time, because you're not trying to change anything in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Mind says this is absolute opposite of what awakening is. But just try it and see. Yeah. Just do it for an hour if that's all you can manage for now. Just for the next hour. If I find myself lost in a negative emotion or thoughts, so be it. I'm not going to say the word should or shouldn't about myself for the next hour. Spiritually, at least,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Let me know what happens. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Good to talk to you. Okay. So we'll take Patrick and then we'll leave it there for today. Whenever you're ready, Patrick.
Yes.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm a journalist by my profession, and there's a lot of duality in that. I live in a country that broke away from a country that had a king and queen, and I think they still do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying, and it looks like we've got a guy in this country that wants to be a king, and I want to write about it, but I want to live in my awakening, and I'm finding some conflict in that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to you about it and see what kind of advice and helping my awakening being number one.
So that's really common, isn't it? That we might feel some conflict between what's going on in our life and what's going on in our awakening. But what if they are the same thing? What if the awareness, is wanting to express itself as this writing, as this unfolding, this expression is the formless coming into form, the formless appearing as this. And you can usually tell when you want to do something and it feels really, really good to do it. If you're really passionate about it and really excited about it, then just letting go of this idea that there might be two different things, that I'm either writing about this or I'm pursuing my awakening. What could they be the same thing? And this is an idea that perhaps your mind will go, that's, they're obviously two different things. Seeming duality and actual duality are different things. naturally, as you get closer to seeing what you really are, you're going to get more in touch with how that wants to express itself. For me, that looks like this. For you, that might look like writing this amazing piece of journalism. Mine doesn't like it because it wants to battle. It's like I want to have a conflict going on here, but
what did you say just then? I didn't hear.
Mine doesn't like this kind of answer because it wants a battle, doesn't it? It wants something to be going wrong, to have to overcome, to fix.
Right.
So accepting this answer, actually, there's nothing going wrong here. As I go further inside and see clearer what I really am, that's naturally going to express itself as wanting to do something in the outer world, in the physical form. And this is what's happening right here, isn't it? There's something that you love to do, and this is it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does it have to be that we hold on to this idea that this is taking me away from my awakening? What if that's not true? What if it's all a fuller expression in the outer world, a fuller seeing in the inner world? It's all the same one. What is this awakening for if it's not really going to result in a outer enjoyment of life too? Life as good, human life as good as it can be while the body's here. Doing what I love to do. Having fun, helping people, making a difference. Whichever way that is for you is whichever way it is. It sounds to me like you're just getting in touch with what that way is for you.
Yes, and I really love this awakening. This has been incredibly inspiring to me, and I've really, since I've connected to your work, I've been able to hear some of the other teachers I've listened to before and understand them better because of how you've explained some of it to me. So this has been like the most important thing to me is to, and it comes from a place of joy as well. It's not like I'm forcing myself, that I feel like I have to do this. It's that I feel like this is really what I love.
Yeah.
Is being.
Yeah.
So.
And there's the formless version of you that you're discovering in satsang. There's also the version of you that's a form that you're also discovering as your life, and what you love to do. And the richness of that, it's all part of our awakening. There's a kind of an inner component to that necessarily because we've been focused just on the body and the form. But after a deepening of seeing and understanding, it's going to naturally want to express itself somehow. It's already going on for us, but we're going to start to really enjoy it and really get a clear sense of each there's only one awareness, but it's showing up as all these human beings, and each one of those is going to have some unique gift to give to the world some way. Just like you could take 10 spiritual teachers and they're all doing it their own way, saying the same thing. You could take 10 journalists that'll all be doing it the same way. 10 athletes, there's never the same expression twice. And getting in touch with how it wants to express itself as you, that's like one of the greatest joys there is. And it will feel aligned with truth. It will feel like you're contributing, like you're making a difference.
Okay.
Just don't let mind make it a problem. Yeah. Don't let mind sell you on the fact that it's an issue, that it's taking you off the path or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Good question. Good to talk to you. Thank you. Okay. So we will leave it there for today. That's a great point to leave it. And just a quick reminder before I stop the recording that the next satsang is 2 weeks today, 11 a.m. back to the usual time, 1st of September. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Helen.